Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. But hit that like button right out of the gate. I would really appreciate it. Seems like a lot of people forget to hit that, and then YouTube doesn't put you in the algorithm. Also, if you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell and then all videos to get notified when I put out a video. Today's video is going to be regarding the text exchange between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs, his live-in boyfriend, who was transitioning to becoming a female. Now, there's a lot of people out there that wonder if the text exchange is legitimate. I mean, is it something that law enforcement put out there to protect Lance Twiggs, or was it something that Tyler Robinson concocted to protect Lance Twiggs? So we're going to take a look at that and see what we can determine. All right, so this is Tyler Robinson right here on the left, and this is Lance Twiggs on the right, the roommate. Here is the conversation. It says, on September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of the note. Now, it's interesting just the way that's worded. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. You know, you'd think he would say, I have the opportunity, and I'm going to take it. I don't know if that's just grammar, whatever, but it's kind of switching tenses there. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and you would think it would say, and I took it, because he knows that somebody's going to be reading this after the fact, because he is going to take the opportunity. Whether or not he was successful or not was the only thing that was up in question. He may have been arrested because they caught him, or he was killed first before the shot, and so, maybe he'd still be able to say he took the opportunity. That's not something that's in question. He's still driving there. So, it's sort of interesting. And then it said, after reading the note, the roommate responded. Apparently this is on Discord, I think. The roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" And so we know that law enforcement has the date and time of this message exchange. And so that's how they know that this is legit in their mind, that it happened. This exchange, the first part of it, took place in the hours directly after the murder of Charlie Kirk. Right? They actually know this. They can tell by looking at the time, and that he's still on the scene. Right? And we know that here in just a moment. It said, "What? You're joking, right?" And then Tyler Robinson said, "I am still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet." It's interesting, I'm stuck in Orem. So he may have told the roommate, Twiggs, that he was going to Orem, and maybe even said he was going to the Charlie Kirk debate. He may have even said that. But we don't know if he said he was going to go there and kill Charlie Kirk. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I have hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. It's weird how he puts longer yet at the end and then rifle still, but I still got to grab my rifle is how normal people would type. So we don't know if this is just how he types regularly, etc. All right, we got to see other samples of his writing to know if he writes like that. And then the roommate said, Twiggs said, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And Robinson said, "I am. I'm sorry." The roommate said, "I thought they caught the person." So he probably thought that he was going there to watch the Charlie Kirk debate, but they arrested somebody else. So I bet you for a moment Twiggs thought at the time, before he even heard from Robinson, that he may have been involved, but then said, I thought they caught the person. So at that time they were thinking, okay, good, they caught the person. It wasn't Tyler? And Robinson said, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. So that part might be interesting. A lot of people brought up the fact that, wow, how did he know about the old man being arrested? You know, this crazy old dude. Well, it turns out that it was on Twitter. Look at September 10th at 1:18 p.m. And I even saw one yesterday at 1 o'clock, but this will serve just fine, even at 1:18. So when the one I saw at 1 o'clock, that's only 35 minutes or so after the murder, and this is another, so 50 minutes after the murder. So it's pretty obvious that he was checking social media and, you know, watching and seeing what the developments were and what information that police had. All right, so, and we know he's still there. He's monitoring the scene. So that absolutely explains it. He has a cell phone. He's looking at it. And fortunately for law enforcement, he's so stupid he was using his phone at the time, and it'll obviously ping in the area. Now, the next portion is a portion that I think leans heavily into this being a natural conversation. And it's right here. I brought it up on my show last night. Right in this section where the next thing is why. And then Robinson was confused and said, why did I do it? The roommate said, yeah. Now, here's the thing. Up here it says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. Why? I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. Why? It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Why? So he didn't know, Tyler did not know what Twiggs was asking why about, because he had just mentioned 3 different things here. And then he said, why did I do it? You know, like, he's inquiring what the why meant. And then the roommate, Twiggs, said, yeah. And I actually asked ChatGPT the same question. All right, I asked it about that. And this is what ChatGPT said. Yes, a great question. That little back and forth, why did I do it? Yeah, is actually one of the most interesting parts of the whole transcript. If this was purely a staged and fabricated clean confession, you'd expect it to be direct and efficient. Example, yes, I did it. Here's why. But this short, slightly awkward exchange has some important implications. Why this exchange feels authentic. It's a natural conversational repair. Why? It's ambiguous. It could mean, why are you stuck in Orem? Why are you telling me this? And I just gave you the list of the 3 things in the prior comment. Robinson's response, why did I do it? Is a clarification check. This is a very human, unscripted, conversational move. The roommate confirming yeah makes the flow feel like an actual live chat, not a one-sided prepared statement. Shows hesitation and processing. If someone was fabricating a text thread to frame themselves or throw investigators off, they'd usually avoid back and forth filler because it risked diluting the message. Including this tiny clarification exchange makes Robinson look like they're thinking through what the roommate meant, which feels like spontaneous cognition. And this is exactly what I was saying on the show last night, and then we went and put the information in ChatGPT, and they virtually came up with the same thing. I don't know if that makes me a robot. I don't know. But then the next part adds emotional realism. The why is a very normal shocked reaction. Robinson doesn't just answer with a clean motive immediately. They pause to confirm meaning. That makes the later motive, I had enough of his hatred, feel like it being given reluctantly, not as part of a prepared speech. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. You know, why did I do it? Yeah, I mean, why wasn't it just why? And then I had enough of his hatred. Because you would have known what the next thing would be. But he was confused, right? So that makes this portion not seem prepared at all. And if that's true, then I had enough of his hatred. Now, you could go one step further if you're on the other side and say they're aware that this little exchange would make it seem more authentic, so put it in there. All right? I don't believe that, though. Okay? This part here is by Robinson. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. So I could imagine him feeling way more comfortable on Discord having this conversation than on a text exchange on a cell phone, although he's using his phone to access Discord. And then the roommate said, how long have you been planning this? And so what's interesting, on the support of the side of the people who think it's fake is, it almost seems like an interrogation, these specific questions. And then Robinson really fills in all this information that absolutely points to his guilt. How long have you been planning this? A bit over a week, I believe. I can get, and then he switched topics really fast right there, though. He's still talking about his gun. That's really concerning him. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. He's really kind of needs somebody to talk to because he's made a huge mistake. I am worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if I had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. I didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. See, he's really hyper-focused on that fact. It's really freaking him out. And he's still there, right? Like, he's at the scene. He's watching. I doubt he's in a car at this point. I think he probably parked his car somewhere, and he's just kind of watching from a distance. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's on surveillance camera at some point where they can see him. We don't know what time of day these were. Was it later in the evening when it got dark that he was going to go back there? Now, that would have been way later in the evening. I mean, he would have had to wait, 8 hours or so after the shooting for it to be dark. And, that's a long time. Or was he just right in the daylight, kind of walking on the streets behind the scene? Like, here is where the rifle was found, right inside there. And was he walking around back in, this area over here, maybe, slightly back here, and watching and could see that there was a cop car there, something like that, blocking off the street. And I could easily, see him walking around. He had the different clothing on, the shorts and the maroon shirt at that time, because he had changed clothes inside that wooded area after leaving the rifle inside of a black towel in a bush. So wherever he parked his car, maybe he was just walking around, he was observing, and he didn't want to risk ever going back into this wooded area to get that rifle. And he says, the only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. I mean, it's sort of interesting that he mentions wrapped in a towel. I mean, it's almost like, hey, wow, that's incredible circumstantial evidence. We see him on the roof with the black towel, and it's wrapping the rifle. All right? I mean, why I say towel? Why not say, God, the only thing I left was the rifle in that in the woods there, or something like that. Instead, he actually mentions wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. And isn't that interesting? Because that implies that he is looking at social media, reading news accounts, and, it's funny because that actually does happen at some point. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. And that really effing sucks. See, he was really focused on it, and he ended up having to leave it. And then this part here is just really psychopathic in my mind. I mean, saying, judging from today, I say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. I mean, what a monster. And then Robinson tells Twiggs to delete this exchange, and that would be in Discord. Then Robinson said, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and he says the rifle, not a rifle. That means it's the rifle he had, and it's very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson said, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty die-hard MAGA. Now, that's something that people are trying to point out, saying, well, why is he saying that? Wouldn't Twiggs already know that his dad is die-hard MAGA? I mean, we don't know if there's actually other comments in between, etc. This is just saying, Robinson says, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty die-hard MAGA. Maybe he's feeling he's not going to be protected by his father in this instance because he's die-hard MAGA and probably likely a fan of Charlie Kirk as well. So he says, since Trump got into office, my dad has been die-hard MAGA. And we don't know what kind of conversations they normally have. Maybe he's told Twiggs that his father is conservative, etc., but maybe they don't talk about his parents that much. And then this is a time where he did. Robinson said, and this is likely the next day or a day and a half later, so maybe there is an exchange in the middle, but he also may have been back home and talking on the phone with Twiggs and not using Discord. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. And then Robinson said, you are all I worry about, love. The roommate said, I'm much more worried about you. And then Robinson said, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. All right. So when I look at that, overall, I think it's an actual exchange, and especially this part right here. To me, when I read that originally, I thought, man, that seems too natural. And we just don't know if this is how he normally writes and types. Maybe he's the one that types a lot and speaks a lot, and Twiggs doesn't. Now, another thing you might consider as well is, why would law enforcement, if they're the ones, a lot of people think that they're the ones that made this to protect Twiggs. And if you put false information in a probable cause document, or in this case, a charging document, I mean, that absolutely puts the case in jeopardy. I mean, look at right here. If a charging document contains false information, it could lead to the charges being dismissed, or it could be a basis for a criminal charge against the person who provided the false information, such as perjury or filing a false police report. For the person accused, the false information could be used to demonstrate the charges are baseless, especially if it's material to the case. And this text exchange is a massive piece of investigative information in the case. It literally is a confession written to a boyfriend of the shooter. All right, so it's massive information. It would be a complete dereliction of duty for the prosecutor to put this into the charging documents. All right, I mean, for the accused, it could be dismissal of charges, etc. Now, this is the charging document, and then prior to that, there would have been a probable cause document, and that's what we had here. This is the probable cause document, Utah County Sheriff. It's let's go to this section right here. The Utah County Sheriff's Office probable cause statement. The following information was obtained by the affiant. And we've gone through all of this. So this was the probable cause, and a judge signed off on that. And then we get the charging documents, and a judge signed off on that. All right, so obviously law enforcement believes that this is a genuine text exchange. The argument really only is on the side, is this a contrived conversation between Robinson and Twiggs to give cover to Twiggs? And for me, it just doesn't really make any sense, because Tyler Robinson was still free when he was watching to see if he could go get that gun. Why would he contrive this information, knowing that it makes him look incredibly guilty? And he also told Twiggs to delete the exchange. That part doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it seems like a really odd thing to put out while you're still safe and all you need to do is get your gun and the rifle and get out of there. And law enforcement knows exactly when these messages were put out, and it probably is absolutely consistent with him still being at the scene, and his phone will ping in that area. I'm sure they've got that information too. And I believe, with all the totality of the information that we have, and just using common sense and logic, that this conversation is a real conversation. And I think it took place in Discord, and he thought that was a little bit safer. They could, delete the messages, etc. And it didn't work out. He got arrested. And all this information is coming out. And apparently this Tyler Robinson guy just isn't as bright as he thought he was. Okay, everybody, let me know in the comments what you think. I think I made a pretty good argument why this is a real document, but feel free to comment in the comment section and let me know what you think. Hit that like button as well. If you could share the video, that would be awesome. And hit that subscribe button. One last thing, as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.